Now, this initial screen or page might be familiar to some of you. We had a similar one a couple of months ago, but I wanted to start with this because I want to emphasize the importance of certain quantitative concepts in trading. Just imagine we go get a mortgage or buy a car or a washing machine or whatever. We need to do the math. You get a loan, you go to the bank, we need to do at least the basic math, right? So the same with trading. Trading is very much a numbers game. We need to know a bit, at least a bit, but the more the better, but at least the basics of probabilities and also some certain trading specific concepts like volatility and normalized, standardized. These are statistical concepts, but very much apply to our work. We need to certainly know the concept, at least the concept, not the calculation. Excel can do the number. You can always use the formula and run the numbers in a second. But it's very important that we understand the concept of standard deviation. That's one measurement of risk, a correct one, and volatility. And then we have ATR, average true range. So make sure you understand ATR and why we use it. It is another measurement or another way of looking at volatility. And we heavily use in the code, inside the code, in everything we do, everything the software does for you, standard deviation and ATR calculations are embedded in the code. So that automatically is your servant. And then we need to understand a little bit at least about linear regression. Okay, so this little sloping line here, when we connect dots in the most shortest or most logical way, the most economical way, again, we don't have to do the calculation. Excel and the software does it for us automatically. In the path of building up confidence to do this job, the more you know these concepts and the more you know why we use them and what's behind it, I think the easier this job will become. Trading will never be easy, but it will be a little easier. Okay, and then the foundation of it all, crowd behavior. Financial markets, just like a soccer game or a baseball game, it's a crowd. And the crowd displays a human crowd, but even animal crowds, obviously, as we will see in a moment, by the way, displays certain characteristic behavior, and all our work at Remek basically focuses on analyzing and examining, not monitoring, but analyzing and drawing conclusions, finding some patterns in that behavior, crowd behavior, that we can potentially utilize or exploit. Now we have the tools, we do have the tools, and we have shown publicly that what we have identified in crowd behavior has actually an edge, has a mathematical advantage that we can put on our side in order to be profitable. All right, and then another mathematical concept, very simple, but foundational, is the edge. So the percentage of winners multiplied by the average win plus the percentage of losers multiplied by the average loss must be bigger than zero. Otherwise, we will not make money. And this plus in the middle is correctly a plus because the second part will be a negative number. So this is the edge. And how we verify the edge? Well, the only way to verify, since we don't know the future, you see, I'm going to make this short, but I just want to make this point. Nobody knows the future. This is not possible. It's not like physical science is like the speed of light, which will be the same tomorrow as it was yesterday. With probabilities like the crowd moving and acting out their intentions on financial markets is a probabilistic behavior. So we need to consider the fact that the best way and the only way we know how to validate an edge is to look at past data, because every data we have in the universe is already past data. There's no data available to us from the future. So what we do, we analyze past data based on the concept that the future will be similar to the past. This is a probabilistic exercise, definitely. That's the only way, that's the only thing we have. But we try to do it as well as possible and as correctly mathematically as possible, because that's the only way we can maximize our chances of success. If you don't do this, I don't think success is possible. And I'm almost totally confident that the 5%, these proverbial 5% of market participants who are set to be successful and who are paid by the other 95%, they have done this because this is the only way to be part of this group. So this whole new series is about, first of all, emphasizing the importance of this work, and also to highlight that there's a certain beauty and a certain pleasure in doing this work, because there's nothing feels better than being a confident trader. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to have losers. Of course, you can have 3, 4, 5, 6 losers. Jim Simons had many. He was not deterred because he ran the numbers. And of course, there are many other examples in the literature as well. Okay, so these are the terms that you may want to Google a little bit or go to our videos and make sure that you have covered these. And now let's move on quickly. And I want you to meet Sean. This is a Scotsman. I met him, well, I saw him on YouTube. This is a very nice guy somewhere in Scotland. He has a sheep and 3 dogs. And why am I showing you this? Because when I saw him work with his dogs, I was instantly thinking of ProSTR BT, instantly, because these dogs do what BT does. And hear me out. Because the way these dogs, and I'm going to show you just one video, 30 seconds, no big deal. It will be quick, but these dogs know what to do. They have been trained, no fault execution. But also, please remember, and this is one point I want to drive home, or just to highlight, is that these dogs, of course, they don't run 24/7. They run when Sean says the magic word. Now, Sean's magic word is like the blue button for us in our strategy. Nobody ever said that automated trading means 24/7 trading. You can do it that way, but if you have verified your numbers and if you have the funds, of course, if the math adds up, sure. But for most of us, probably we will not be running this 24/7. Well, personally, I don't have the funds. That requires a large account and nerves, obviously. Most of us will run this based on some kind of human decision, which must be rule-based, but definitely a human decision. So in this video, like in the life of this guy, when he gives the magic word, the command to the dog, he knows when to give that command, and then the dog does what it does, and life is beautiful. It's fantastic, and I'm going to show you the video in a second. And these dogs, they do this 1,000 times. But then when the job is done, they come back and they sit down. Same with our BT. When you press the blue button, you activate your hound dogs or sheep dogs. Okay? And again, the dogs do not run all the time, of course. They execute when you give them the command. That's the blue dot, the blue button for us, the switching on the strategy. And the dogs, interesting to see in the videos, they also self-adapt, because every situation, I mean, imagine sheep, 100 sheep, every situation will be different. But the dogs adapt and they do the job. I don't want to waste your time, but I'm going to click here because I want to show you this, probably turn off the... I don't claim to understand every Scottish word that he might be saying, but he gives very simple commands to this dog, and just give this dog 15 seconds of your time and see what happens. Magically, all the sheep go into where they're supposed to go. And this is what BT does. Again, the similarity that struck me is the consistent execution. And I've seen this dog about 100 times because there's lots of videos like this, and the dog always does the same thing, although the situation is always different. And then he comes back, sits down, and that's it. So I hope you found it a little fun and also somewhat interesting and encouraging that there are similarities between managing crowd behavior with an algorithm, which to me, this dog is exactly like an algorithm. All right, so let's move on because we have lots to do. All right, so what does it take to join the 5%? The way I see it, at least there are three ingredients: capital and the right amount of capital. Capital itself is not enough. It has to be the right amount of capital. And we will need to spend some time either today or perhaps on Wednesday or in later sessions because I want to really show you how to calculate the correct amount of capital necessary for a certain situation. Even if you have the best airplane, if you don't put enough fuel in it, that airplane will never get to Paris. We have a very good algorithm. Think of it as a well-tested airplane. You can trust that plane, trust the machine, but you need to put the right amount of fuel in it. And that's what we mean about the right amount of capital. I haven't really seen too many people do this publicly. I don't think most traders know at all how to calculate this. We have some videos about this, but we're going to revisit this topic. Without this, there's no chance. Just like not enough fuel, no chance. Okay, so that's done. The second is an edge. Now we do have an edge, and the edge is a mathematical advantage. Like just a minute ago, we saw the formula of how to calculate the edge. So basically, the edge is all about we have to make more than what we lose. That's over a large sample size, many trades, not 10 trades, not 50 trades, 5,000 trades. And what is this word falsifiable? Well, on YouTube, you see 2 million videos about not falsifiable concepts, which means subjective opinion-based concepts like all kinds of waves. I'm not going to go into that. With all due respect to our historical figures of historical significance in the history of trading, many of them were completely wrong, and many of them had no idea about the math. And they didn't live in modern days anyway. They had no computers, no Excel, nothing. So with all due respect to those in history, we must say today that the way we trade must be based on a method which is falsifiable. So falsifiability means that what we do must be governed by rules, must not be governed by opinion, but by quantifiable rules, which means rules which we then can put into a computer code, run the code, and it will be making money or losing money, or perhaps break even, but one of these three. And there will be no question about which one it is because we ran the test, we ran the code, and if it's black, it's black. If it's white, but there's no arguments about it. There's no room for opinion. Okay, so falsifiability is a very important criterion. If a concept is not falsifiable, if you hear somebody talk about some stuff, but he or she, of course, cannot put into a code, and there's no definite yes or no's can be come up with, then that's just nothing but opinion. Moving on, there's definitely one more thing that we will need: skills. Because, well, however algorithmic you might be, this takes nerves. There will be 3, 4, 5 losers. If you do it long enough, you might even run into it early on, maybe later on. You might also have 8 winners in a row, which is just as dangerous, believe it or not, as 8 losers. In both cases, I think best is to stop trading and go for a walk. But more on that too. But certainly there is a human ingredient in this whole mix, and we certainly need to be able to learn to control our nerves. Not to eliminate them, I don't think that's possible. You cannot stop being a human being when you do this. We will always remain human, and that's just good as it is, and we have no choice anyway. But what we need to learn is to control our nerves so our nerves don't drive the bus. Algorithmic trading helps a lot. This is a big step forward because most of the time, especially with BT, as many of you know already, BT is the code which by and large removes you and your shaky nerves from the events. It will not even allow you to touch your mouse, or not so easily at least, okay, while you're in the heat of the battle. And again, we will need to spend a little time on all three later on. The laws of math, probabilities cannot be ignored. There are mathematical realities of trading. One, if not the biggest reason of not being successful, is ignorance of the math, ignorance of the numbers. And you need sample size. And we have several tests, but one of them was run on 17,000 trades over a 5-6 year period. That is a sample size which you can start to work with or to build confidence on. I'm not going to build an Excel chart here, but maybe we'll do the detailed work next time. But definitely, so what is the right amount of capital? So what is it that we want to, I'm going to use this area here, this white area, to drop some ideas. So first of all, we don't want to receive a margin call. So we definitely want to check the broker's requirement, not the intraday margin. The intraday margin should be ignored and never, ever, ever be used in this calculation. The intraday margin, that $50 to trade the ES or something, intraday, that's a bait. That's a bait. Okay, so let's say 20,000 required by the broker. And then there is the next thing I can think of is, how do we trade? Well, we put on a trade and we use a stop. Let's say this is the Keltner. This is usually 3 ATRs. So as a rough figure, I would say add 3 ATRs to it when you're in a trade on your account. Of course, if you have 2 contracts on, then you multiply it by 2. So the X number of ATRs necessary to maintain your stop. How do I know how many dollars is 1, 2, 3, or 9 ATRs? Because the broker doesn't count in ATRs, the broker wants dollars. How do I know? Well, Remek converter, we have an indicator that does the math, and it's also baked into BT. So if you put on the risk management module in BT, BT will do this for you automatically. It will always monitor how much, if you have enough money on the account for to execute a given trade. Now, if you allow yourself several trades to be on at the same time, then obviously, if I have a GC trade and then I put on a ZB or something, or an NQ, whatever, then of course, that requires a stop as well. So that will also be part of this number. What else is there? And then there's one more ingredient, yes, which is what we call the longest expected losing streak. However good your edge is, however reliable your edge is, it's just a mathematical fact. Just think of flipping a coin, 50% probability heads or tails, everybody knows. And then you start flipping the coin. And then, of course, over a large number of flips, it will be just about 50-50. So if you do it for a week, probably about 50% will be heads and 50% tails. But if you just do it for 3-4 minutes, maybe 20 times, there's no guarantee it will be 10-10. And there's no such law in the universe, because this is a tendency. Just imagine that you spend a full weekend flipping coins and you record the results into Excel. But imagine the situation. You flip the coin for the full weekend and you end up flipping that coin 10,000 times. And yes, at the end, probably it will be just about 50-50, a little bit back and forth, but just about 50-50. 10,000 flips is a lot of flips, so it will be close to 50-50. Yes, but, and here's the point. If you go into the data, and if you actually go into Excel and you see, and again, with Excel, it's very easy to identify those runs, those long streaks of losers or winners, in other words, heads or tails, you can tell actually Excel asked the question, what was the longest streak of heads in this 10,000 series? You will be surprised that you might find a streak of 10 heads in a row. 10 heads in a row or 10 tails in a row. Does it mean that it's not a fair coin? Does it mean that it's not a coin? It's not a 50-50? It doesn't mean that. No, this is part of how the universe works. Same thing with trading. So let's suppose that we have a win-loss ratio of 55. Accuracy rate, we call this in trading, which means 55% of my trades are winners. Well, doesn't sound much, but believe me, that's a lot of swimming pools. All right. And then there's another metrics that we need to be mindful of is the win-loss ratio, which means when I win, the average win compared to the average loss. Now, since let's suppose you can do your own numbers, by the way. For me, that's about 1.45, something like this, 1.4, 1.5, which means I usually keep a runner, which improves the results. But the point is that when you do the trading based on these numbers, you will do it long enough, you will have 5, 6, 7 losers in a row and 5, 6, 7 winners in a row, sometimes 2. So if you ever, and you will, each of us will, hit these extreme spots in trading, too many winners in a row, which can really make us dizzy and drunk with success, very dangerous state of mind, and vice versa. We can have 5, 6, 7 losers in a row. That's not the end of the world as long as I know that over 17,000 trades, my crowd behavior methodology works. There's no reason to worry, but I knew probably it's a good idea to go buy King or just to give it a little time. We'll go into Excel a little later, but these are the ingredients of how to calculate the correct amount of capital. The point I want to make is that most people, almost everybody I ever talked to in 10 years, underestimated the mathematically required capital on the account. Okay, so this is just a recap again. This slideshow will be here for you later. I'm going to read everything, but these are some of the factors why we strongly believe that what we do makes sense. And again, just more information on the crucial ingredients and the theory behind our code. Building a code, like with Lego, if you can code anything. Well, the question is, perfect. The code is perfect, but will it make money? Is it useful? Is it useful? And these concepts ensure that we not only build something really outstanding, but it is a embodiment of something that is a usable capture of certain aspects of crowd behavior. And I think we did it the right way because it is self-adaptable and you can use it. I'm not going to go into that, but because of these features, you can use it on any time frame, any market, as long as it's liquid, without having to really fiddle with the settings all the time because they are self-adapting. The code is self-adapts to the chart you put it on. Here is a little page, a little summary about falsifiability, why the code, your trading strategy must be falsifiable. And please let me make an important an important point. You could be perfectly 100% discretionary trader. I'm sure even if you are a discretionary trader, you are still rule-based. The point is, even if you're a discretionary trader who makes decisions as a human being, that's fine. But make sure that you are able to put your rules into words or into math and somehow test it on past data. Did it work in the past? Is what I'm doing, did it work in the past? One way or the other, you need to be able to answer that question. Make sure that you are able to formulate the rules and then test the rules on past data. And if it's a yes, go ahead. But if it's a no, then you need to look for something else. Okay, and now this is another summary page. We had a past webinar where we actually went into the details of how step by step, you see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we arrive at the finished chart with all the ingredients, but we start with just one linear regression line. And I don't show this too often, but I don't mind showing this to you guys now because it actually is quite important, and I think it's one major factor of my confidence in the system anyway, and I hope it will be yours too. Understanding how we build up what makes up our chart, in fact, starting with the linear regression. And you see, price data is not even that important for us. I might even hide the price data. All I'm interested in is linear regression at this point. Then we put on the Keltner. That's already a powerful combination. Linear regression combined with the Keltner, you're halfway there. Seriously. Second, mathematically capturing emotion. Think about this for a second. Mathematically capturing emotion. And that's what we do by identifying when price steps out of the Keltner one way or the other way. We even paint it so you can visually see the emotion on the chart. Greed and fear, momentum, people en masse doing one thing, which is the one thing that will move price, by the way. Price don't move because people have an opinion. Price moves because people change camps, either from zero to long or short, or from short to long, or vice versa. That's what moves price, and we identify that emotional charge mathematically. After that, we identify the exact candle where momentum emerges first, but then what we will actually trade is not the first, but the second and consecutive reemergences of momentum. Okay, so this is how it works, and then we do some calculations mathematically just to calculate our risk, because we need to maintain and grow our account over a large number of trades, and that's how this whole our charts are built. So spend a little time here. The more you understand why we did it this way and what builds on what and why we end up where we are, it adds to your confidence. Okay, I could go on, but probably I'm getting sidetracked here. So I'll stop right here. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you found something here which is useful for you. And before we go, in appreciation of your attendance, we do have a code here for you. This is seriously for a hilarious discount. So if you don't have our tools yet, then this is a good time to get it. Now, we have an extra special deal for you here. If you already have a previous version of any of our kata, or if you have purchased anything from us, including educational products or services, before, you are entitled to get the update, which means not the full product. The full bundle is a bit more expensive, but make sure you use this code, because you will be surprised how much it shaves off the price today. But for those of you who have purchased anything from us before, they are current customers to us, and current customers are entitled to go for the update, the current customer update, which is one-fourth of the list price of the full product. In either case, you're getting 3 strategies, 3 versions of the same algorithmic code. I'm sure you know this, and 9 essential indicators in this package. So no need to buy the 9 indicators separately and the strategies separately, because if you get the full package, all Remek software, all in one installer, all Remek software, then you have everything for one easy price. All right. Well, thank you very much. We'll have another meeting at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, partly same area, but I also want to move on to keep it interesting. So this is to accommodate people who might be at work or in a time zone which is not convenient for them, the noon Eastern time. So the other one will be at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, and will continue on into the fall. So I want everybody who attends these meetings to make one step or several steps each day closer to where we want to be, which is the 5%. The numbers are on our side. I'm positive. So I'll stop right here. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and we'll meet hopefully with many of you on Wednesday. Thank you, and mindful trading.